Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating evolution happening in the culinary and event space right now. We're looking at how 2026 wedding cakes have completely transformed. They've moved far, far away from being those simple, expected desserts at the end of a meal and have instead become these highly customizable, structural pieces of high-end edible art. If you've been to a wedding recently, you might have already noticed this shift starting, but the trends for 2026, they are taking it to an entirely new level.
Okay, let's get right into the big question. Is the traditional, perfectly smooth, uniform white fondant wedding cake dead? Well, for the modern couple, it certainly seems that way. We're seeing couples completely ditch the rigid, hyper-perfect white fondant for a new aesthetic philosophy that industry experts are calling breathable luxury. It's this really cool vibe that mixes a deep desire for peace and stillness with a joyful, almost spirited demand for personality.
It's a tricky balance, right? Finding a cake that expresses personality without accidentally slipping into cheesy theme party territory takes a lot of intentionality. One industry expert captures this shift perfectly, noting that the cake has essentially evolved into the primary visual anchor of any high-end celebration. It's really no longer just a sweet treat. It's a dynamic conversation piece that literally dictates the mood of the entire room. So as we look at 2026, the cake world actually splits into this totally fascinating dichotomy. At the very top tier of design, it's basically a battle between restrained architectural purity, so think clean lines and modern gallery aesthetics, and the vibrant energy of botanical maximalism, which is all about embracing messy perfection and opulent, over-the-top details. Let's explore both sides of this coin.
Section 1. Architectural and Structural Minimalism. Let's take a look.
Let's start with a really calm, measured look at this minimalist trend. For the couple who wants their cake to look like it belongs in an avant-garde modern art museum, designers are heavily borrowing from the Japanese philosophy of wabi-sabi. It's so interesting to see how they're utilizing stiffened ganache or high-ratio buttercream applied with a palette knife to create this handcrafted raw stone or Venetian plaster feel. It totally avoids clinical perfection and instead offers a tactile finish that catches the light just beautifully.
To pull off this structural purity, bakers are literally employing materials you'd usually expect to find in industrial design. We're seeing gravity-defying silhouettes, like translucent acrylic tiers that make the cake look like it's literally floating in midair. We're also seeing asymmetrical, deconstructed stacking, and even the use of translucent isomalt, which is a type of sugar substitute, to create these crystalline glass shards that add unbelievable light play. It's wild.
Section 2. Moving on to botanical and vintage maximalism. All right, shifting gears entirely to the opulent, highly textured side of 2026 design, we have the Lambeth method. And this brilliantly illustrates how the industry is looking backward to move forward. The Lambeth method is this distinctly retro, heavily piped aesthetic. But for 2026, bakers are modernizing this vintage piping by using bold monochromatic colors. Just imagine an entire cake layered in ruffles, but completely saturated in deep charcoal or a vibrant sunset orange. It turns a really old-fashioned technique into high fashion.
Now, textured buttercream finishes are undeniably the hottest trend right now. Notice the different tools at play here. Bakers are using offset spatulas to get these sweeping, almost fabric-like folds. They use comb tools for uniform ridges, and honestly, even toothpicks or skewers for random artistic swirls. Textured buttercream is incredibly forgiving, it catches the light beautifully in photographs, and it makes every single cake feel wonderfully handmade and alive.
To top off these maximalist designs, we're seeing some absolutely incredible tactile elements. Instead of stiff, traditional sugar flowers, we are seeing edible meadow flowers pressed flat, exactly like they've been kept in a book. We're seeing pearl core glam with piped buttercream pearls and really rich Baroque details. These elements bring this unscripted, earthy beauty to the table without feeling loud or overdone. Now this breakdown shows exactly why all of this matters. You can't just pick a cake in a vacuum, you know? You really need to seamlessly match the structural technique and visual identity of your cake to the physical environment of your event. A futuristic architectural float looks perfect in a modern art gallery, while a meadow press cake covered in dried flora belongs in an outdoor garden. Or consider how a high-gloss mirror stone cake perfectly matches the reflective, bold energy of a black tie gala. It is all about cohesive event design. Section 3. Defining 2026 colors and flavors. Beyond structure and texture, 2026 is completely shaking up traditional color palettes and demanding some highly adventurous culinary flavor profiles.
Let's take a look at what's happening here. While Pantone's color of the year, Cloud Dancer, sets this billowy, airy mood, Butter Yellow is truly the emotional heart of 2026. It bridges the gap perfectly between neutral and colorful. For those wanting high energy, Cobalt Blue paired with Chartreuse is taking over, while winter events are really leaning into heavy, old money, moody earth tones like Mocha Mousse and Deep Burgundy.
And here is a massive takeaway. After nearly a decade of gold and brass dominating table settings and cake foil accents, gold is out. The silver renaissance has officially arrived. Silver and chrome are bringing this cool, crisp, and high-fashion modern edge to wedding decor that gold, honestly, sometimes lacks.
But it's not just about looks, right? The palette of the 2026 client demands a real sensory culinary experience that mirrors a fine dining dessert. We are stepping far, far away from your traditional sugary vanilla sponge. Instead, bakers are creating these super sophisticated savory sweet profiles. We're talking olive oil and rosemary, umami-rich miso caramel, and delicate Earl Grey infused with honey.
Section 4. Breaking the traditional mold.
A lot of couples are just deciding what's actually important to them and completely skipping the vertical stacked tiers altogether. Single-tier cakes are getting dramatically bigger and better. We're seeing these massive table runner cakes that stretch all the way across the table, proving you can absolutely have a showstopper without building vertically. We're also seeing interactive kinetic cakes with rotating parts, and even giant family-style slab tiramisus serving as the ultimate "we're doing dessert our way" statement.
Section 5. Finding your cake vibe.
So with all these incredible options, what should you actually take away from this when you go to hire a professional baker? Well, preparation is key. Look for consistent patterns in the textures, shapes, and finishes you're saving to your mood boards, because frankly, that is your style, even if you can't quite name it yet. When you sit down with a baker, use those photos not as the blueprint to copy perfectly, but to communicate the level of polish, the shape, and the overall vibe you're aiming for.
Oh, and a super quick but absolutely vital safety note for anyone leaning into the botanical trends. If you're incorporating trendy, fresh florals like baby's breath into your design, be aware that it contains naturally occurring saponins. These are compounds which are actually mildly toxic if consumed. You absolutely must ensure your baker uses a proper food-safe barrier to protect the cake and, your guests. What an incredible shift in the culinary world, right? We've seen how cakes have evolved from basic fondant tiers into deeply personal, structural marvels. The only question left is, if you were planning an event today, how would you choose to express your own personal story and aesthetic through the edible art at your celebration?